Hi, I'm Lise Colucci, and I'm one of the life coaches at queenbeing.com, where we help you to discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships. Hello. Sorry, I came on a little late here. I got caught up with something. So hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk. I had a question a couple days ago about what to do when you are in any new relationship. It could be a friendship. It could be you found someone you want to be in a relationship with, you're dating, whatever it is. It could be even just a friendship or coworkers, or when you're in new relationships after narcissistic abuse and you are triggered and you are sabotaging the relationship because of the triggers, or you're fearful that you will. So, hello. Hi, Jeep and Gypsy and Shoshi's Minis. Hello. I don't remember who asked it, so hopefully they will find this and watch it. But let's start with the normal, which is if you have any, if you need help with anything related to narcissistic abuse recovery, head over to queenbeing.com. There's lots of info over there. Check out the videos here. Check out, obviously, Angie's videos. And if you need help with coaching or group coaching, make sure to look in the main description of every video. There's information on how to find me for coaching or group coaching if you need that. If you want texting notifications of my going live, text me at 33222. Put the word Lise Live as one word, LISE, and hit send. Okay. Hello, Vicky and Karina. You're sensitive to red flags and keep you from getting close to people. Yeah, right? Okay. Hey, Christy. So I think that's it. Anything I missed? If you haven't hit subscribe, do so, and hit the thumbs up if you like these videos. So, okay, let's get started. Triggers, new relationships, slippery slope, sabotage, all that stuff, right? Okay, so let's go. It's a big deal, all right? When you enter into something new and you're opening yourself up to vulnerabilities, which is the only way to really have a relationship with someone, right? You can't, even if it's a friendship, we're talking any kind of relationship here, especially if it's a romantic one, because you're opening yourself up to a similar experience that you just, or hopefully have not just, but have had enough time to heal from. You just healed from, really, right? And the only way to reemerge into something like that is to do it, right? There's no tester. There's no, well, you can keep distance for a while and you can date and you can have friendships that are superficial. But if you want to dive into something that is connected and close, because that's what you want in life, when you do it, right? And the triggers come up, and they come up fast and hard, and they throw you for a loop, and they are unexpected. You think you'd healed from something, and there it is. All right. So what do you do? And why is this happening? And what's going on in the first place? Okay. And also, if you have any questions, you're saying that Shoshi's saying that she sees red flags and it keeps you from getting close to people. And that's another. So you are reacting to, is it a red flag, or is it just me thinking it's a red flag, or it's truly a red flag? Because if that's the case, if it's truly a red flag, then you're seeing that those aren't the right people for you. So let's assume that we find some friend or potential partner or whatever that isn't showing a lot of red flags. And let's assume we're watching and we know how to watch for these things. Let's assume that we are, we're seeing that they're a pretty good person and they're not probably toxic. I mean, everyone's got something, right? Everyone's got something that could be a red flag to a relationship. We have them. These triggers are red flags to the other person if they're looking, right? If they know what they're looking at, they'd be like, whoa, this person's triggered all over the place. They're not ready for this. But so how do we get ready? How do we be safe for others and safe for ourselves and not sabotage these new beginnings? All right. And what's going on? All right. So number one, understanding that triggers are the past, which are trying to connect meaning toward the future, right? So we're trying to, you're hyperventilating right now. Oh no, am I triggering you right now? Or you hyperventilate in the situations? If you're hyperventilating right now, feel your feet and ground and just listen and I'm not going to talk about anything too scary. We're going to talk about what to do about it, not all the triggers that come up and how horrible it is. Well, we'll do that a little bit, but we're going to talk about some things we can do to help create new relationships, whatever those relationships look like, that are safe for both yourself and the other person. Oh, you're hypervigilant. You're hypervigilant. It's okay. I'm like, uh-oh. Okay, you're hypervigilant. Right. Hypervigilance is one of the ways that the triggers show up, right? So the trigger happens. And when it happens, it's usually something like, let's talk about some of the main areas, what can happen. So you're in a new relationship. Of course, trust, number one. Why would you trust someone you don't know? You wouldn't, right? Nobody would. They don't trust you. You don't trust them. Normal. But because of what we've experienced, because we've experienced our trust being given and realizing that our life was a lie, we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves often. We have to learn to trust ourselves. So the hypervigilance is maybe your form of clinging to trusting yourself. Like if I just protect myself at all costs, then I can trust myself, right? So, hi, Andy. So trust is formed through experience, through consistencies, through understanding and really watching if someone else has empathy, through your own experience of yourself and what you feel like when you're around someone. When you're around someone new and you step away from them, what do you feel like? What are you feeling? Not the trigger, not what's being triggered, but what are you actually feeling about yourself? In the beginning, it's easier to see because you're excited and they're a new person. You can really feel it. I can feel what I feel from that other person because that's before the emotions get in there. Once the emotions get in there, the second you have that connection, let me tell you, the trust, the feeling of the trigger can be really big. And you can't differentiate really easily what are you sensing as a red flag and what are you sensing as what is just your own trigger? It can be kind of tricky. Hey, Mary D. Mary D here says Mary. It's okay. You can be Mary D. Anxiety, yes. All right. So other triggers are the abuse triggers. I mean, abandonment, right? We're terrified of abandonment. We're terrified of being lied to. It does feel like paranoia. It feels like paranoia because it is irrational. It's irrational and it's out of scope for the stage of where the relationship is. That's one indication you're triggered. You can then step back and say, is this a red flag? Is there a reason I'm triggered? We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go over some more of the triggers so that we're sticking to like a course here. Things that a person might do that remind you of your ex, mannerisms can trigger you, right? And those mannerisms can trigger all sorts of things. Oh, they're going to gaslight me next. This is love bombing. It's hard to differentiate in the beginning of a new relationship, even a friendship, if it's love bombing or if it's just interest. If it's just someone showing interest or is it love bombing? Hard to know. It's hard to sense those things. So yeah, hypervigilance gets in there. The hypervigilance builds stress in you, right? And then your hair triggered, right? It's right there. The triggers are right there. So things that can trigger you, like the person might remind you of the narc in some way. Or a situation comes up and it's handled completely opposite. And for some reason, that's triggering. All right. The mystery of the unknown with a new person or someone you've not known long, that mystery of the unknown that is excitement for someone who hasn't been abused is anxiety for those of us who have. We want to know the outcome, and everything that it falls in the line of mystery that should be beautiful and unfolding and created together becomes this terrible, gripping anxiety. You can tell I'm kind of in the middle of this, right? We're going into Lisa's mind today. Real life, real time. It's kind of funny. Okay. My trigger is when people gossip about other people. I'm always going to assume they will do the same to me, as you should. That is something to trust in yourself, especially if you say, Shoshi, you know what? I have a problem talking about other people. If it's safe to say with someone, you know what? I don't like talking about other people. Can we talk about something else? And they can't stop. Yeah, well, that's an indication that maybe it's not your people. I don't tend to want to be around people that sit and gossip. Yeah, I don't have time for small talk anyway, but that kind of petty stuff is, you're right. You're right there. So that's a matter of trusting yourself. So I don't know if you're being triggered or you're being cautious and correct. All right. I get friendly terms with someone, become familiar, and then I want to avoid them. There you go. Avoidance. That's another way a trigger can show up. It's on my list. Avoidance is huge. Avoidance and withdrawal. You get close, you open up vulnerability, and then you slam the door and you say, oh my gosh, that was so scary. I'm not even going to peek out the window. I'm going to stay right here and keep them at an arm's length. Huge reaction to triggers. And so I would look at what caused that feeling of needing to withdraw. For myself, sometimes it's knowing that it's not the right relationship and not knowing how to navigate it so that it becomes what it's supposed to be. Sometimes for me, the withdrawal is absolute fear that this person is going to hurt me. And I have to fight the avoidance like crazy to keep myself open to the new experiences and to the budding vulnerability that is happening, because the vulnerability is essential with trust, right? Would you trust someone who wasn't vulnerable with you, like on an intimate level? No, you'd wonder why they were holding back and you'd feel like you never know them. So, but that's not something you hand over usually right away, right? Unless you're me and you go, hey, let's just do this. Okay. Yeah, the mystery. Withdrawal and avoidance was my next thing I was going to say. You do the same thing, Jack. They want to come closer and I freak out. It could be the pace that's too fast for you guys. So when you're having these triggers, I'm going to do a few more and then we'll talk about it here. Sweet Pink. Oh man, when my fiance actually treats me like I should be treated and then better, I'll cry. And it happens often. I'm just so used to letting myself accept, I'm going to assume bad treatment or something is what you're going to say, what you were going to say, accept something. Yeah. Okay. So time can be a trigger. The time spent can be too much. It can be too little. If you see someone, say you see someone new, say you're dating and you see someone 3 times in a week because you've been dating a while, or you realize this is a good connection and you're like, okay, yeah. And you only have short windows of time. So like maybe you have a lunch or you have like a hour hangout. You're not doing long dates or whatever. And you're trying to piece time together so you get to know someone. And that feels good. That feels okay. It starts getting intense because maybe you're getting closer or whatever. And then suddenly you have a week apart. What does that remind you of? Right? It triggers the love bomb devalue. It triggers the withholding. It triggers the abandonment. It triggers so many things. The time can be, or they become consuming of your time. They're always calling. They're always texting. They want to spend every minute with you, blah, blah, blah. That can feel like love bombing. It can feel like a lot of pressure on your personal time and this sacred thing that you've created, which is self again, right? It can feel like losing yourself. So time is a big one. Pacing it and timing is difficult because you got 2 people's timing. If you're talking about a friendship or a relationship, you've got 2 people involved here. It's not just you and your triggers. You got to remember that other person has their own. If you're over 30, you've got someone that's got their own story about the baggage that they carry and the hurts and the pains that they've had, right? And if you're over 40, it not only doubles, it just is huge, right? So you got 2 people and they're both being triggered by similar things. Not just survivors get triggered. Everyone gets triggered. Everyone who's had a past is going to have triggers to that past. Because remember, the trigger is the past that we're trying to make the future, We're trying to project it into the future so we can look at what the possible things that could go wrong are, assume they're already wrong, and freak out and avoid, or freak out and close the door, or whatever we're doing. Triggers they're meant to protect you, but there's nothing to protect yourself from if you don't have reality involved in the mix, right? If you're just reacting to a trigger, you're sabotaging the new relationship, like the original question. And over 50, right? Yes, Mary D. Exactly. We come with, but. Finding people who are emotionally intelligent, finding people who have worked through their stuff, people who have healed themselves, people who have spent some time alone, people who, things like that. Sometimes this stuff is actually really healing to work on with someone else. And so it's not all bad that we have these triggers, but we got to understand what they are, to own them, and to realize this is our part. We got to take care of it. And when someone else is triggered, to give them space to do their part and figure it out. So another thing that can trigger is boundaries. We're often not real great with the boundaries, and then we learn, right? And hopefully by the time we're entering into something that is a relationship, but friendships even, we have learned to set boundaries, but we're also learning as we go, because you can't practice really you can't, in a healthy way, without hurting other people. You can't practice relationship, and you can't practice friendships. You enter into them or you don't, right? And the practice ones, that's just using someone it's all learning as you go. So you got to keep doing your work and giving your best toward whatever the thing is you're trying to create, to be fair to both yourself and the other person, right? So this is why it's hard, because you can't just be like, we're the practice people. I want to practice for a while. So that's whopefully why you're practicing in life on how to witness yourself, and how to be self-loving, and how to have self-care, and how to know you're okay alone, all that stuff. Hopefully you're doing that as the practice, but the actual doing it is actually just doing it. That's what's astounding and super triggering. Okay, I'm yelling. I'm sorry. All right. I'd rather stress at work than in a relationship because I was abused so bad and I felt weak. At least stress at work doesn't make me feel weak. I feel strong and resolve an issue. Well, then that would be an indication that you personally may not be ready or wanting to engage in it. I'm more talking about like when you are, right? So hoping to heal generational and ancestral traumas. Say more, Kat. Yep, in a romantic situation I'm dabbling with now, I get alerted when they joke sarcastically. Yeah, because it's a reminder of being devalued, right? Okay, so another thing might be commitment and exclusivity may be triggering to either party. That's a big deal, right? When you're like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to try and be exclusive or whatever. And then taking it further, we're going to make a commitment to this being a relationship. Right? Okay. That can be super triggering. I'm getting now dense here. Anyway, not really. But okay. So there's all kinds of triggers that can come up is what I'm saying. And there's anything that has been used, any vulnerability that has been used, anytime you've put yourself on the line and had it as abused as it is from narcissistic people, it can potentially be a trigger for later. So it's important. The reason I'm saying them all is understanding what they are so that you're not projecting it onto that other person. All right. Or the other relationship or the friendship or whatever. So I can trust myself even if I can't trust them yet. That is huge. Yes. The more I'm learning about myself and boundaries, my triggers, the more I can assess what I need in terms of those boundaries and triggers from a person. Thank you. And from yourself. Yes. Very well said. And exactly what we're going to get to in just a second. All right. So one thing to remember, when you're aware that you're triggered, okay, you know what it feels like. You know you're in reaction. Everything is going along fine. I'll try and do real life stories without being too personal. See, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And you're anxious. You're like, what? About what? Right? The logical brain is laughing, going, what, girl, come on. And you don't know. You don't know. You just know you're anxious. You're like super anxious. You're going, why am I super anxious? There's nothing wrong, right? Because the potential for something to be wrong is always there. Because one person didn't reply to a text for 3 hours. What? I'm a big girl, don't need that. You know what I mean? Like things like that. And that has to do with time, and it has to do with pace and flow and all of that. But what is it triggering? It's triggering past. It's triggering abandonment. It's triggering rejection. It's triggering thinking something's one way and it having not being on the same page with someone else. It's triggering that you have just made yourself vulnerable to another human being in a big way, even if it's not all the way yet, right? That the only way to be yourself and to be authentic is with an element of vulnerability. That doesn't mean you have given over everything and you're, or you have a connection that just feels strong, right? And so it's scary. So what the trigger means is I'm scared. What that anxiety means is I'm scared. What am I scared of? So remembering that it is yours. That is yours. This is my anxiety. This has nothing to do with the other person. I can look at the situation and realize nothing's the matter. Therefore, it is mine. There are no red flags. There are no, assuming that this is the case for you. If you see red flags, different situation. You see red flags, you go, okay, that's something to pay attention to. I'm going to watch that. I'm going to pay attention to that. It makes me anxious. And then you can talk to them about it, see what happens. But if there are no red flags, if it's the question originally was, how do I stop a good relationship from being sabotaged by my own triggers? So we're going to assume this is all going on. You're watching, you're paying attention for red flags. You're paying attention for what you need and what they need. And you're being fair to both people. You're scared for the gaslighting to come. Right. When a guy gets angry and frustrated, I hear in his voice that triggers me. I'm just waiting for him to explode. I know it's irrational. Everyone gets frustrated. No. It makes sense. It makes sense. And that's a different kind of trigger than we're talking about, because right now I'm talking about triggers that are 100% wholly your own. Okay. Not the kind that is you're being triggered by the positive. By the positive feelings, by allowing yourself to feel open, allowing yourself to feel cared for. That's scary stuff. And it's a different thing than what Vicki you're talking about, because that is a direct response to something that is a threat. Somebody getting angry is a threat. You don't know what it's especially if you know what's possible from people. So, and I believe them. You believe them and take into account what is being said, right? Because you're trying to weigh the situation and trust them, right? So, okay, you need to learn to look for green flags, right? Go back and watch my one on emotionally safe versus emotionally unsafe people, and then there's another one on feeling emotionally safe as well. That might help you, Shoshi, to have some awareness for green flags, feeling content, feeling calm, feeling like you're on the same page, like you communicate well, things like that. There's a whole list of stuff. So, but when everything's okay and you've got a bunch of green flags going and you're still triggered, let me tell you, it can be the best thing, and it can feel as terrifying as if it can feel terrifying. You can feel as triggered as if you just were discarded, which is wild to my brain that happens, but there you go. It can throw you back to childhood stuff. Okay, so we get triggered by the positives because with narcissists, we wait for the other shoe to drop. Yes, we also get triggered by the positive because with narcissists, the positive is the hook. So we are terrified of anything that is positive being something that's setting a trap. So that's where you're watching for who this other person is, who these friends are. We're watching for things like, are they gossiping about everyone? Well, that's not really safe, right? But if they're not, if they're perfectly fine, good people, and they're just people living life and they're, positive person, and there's nothing going on, why are you still having triggers? I ask myself. because you're opening yourself up to big emotion. And the last time you did that wasn't such a good thing, right? All right. So how to not sabotage this new relationship, how to not sabotage a new friendship or a new relationship or a new anything with anyone else. How to not sabotage when you're talking to other survivors and you have a trigger and they're good people. How do you not sabotage it when you're triggered, when you're the one triggered? I see it all the time. I see it in group occasionally, even. Someone will have a trigger and they'll react to the other person. And fortunately, they are emotionally intelligent, lovely people, and they ask about it. And when they ask about it, it can be worked through. And that's what it is. It's the owning it. This is my trigger, and I'm not going to project it onto this new thing. I'm going to take some time to figure it out. We're talking about it as if these triggers are bad. What I am learning is they are the next level of healing. All right. They are ripping a Band-Aid off of a wound that never healed. It healed, but we covered it up and we healed it to as far as we can heal it. When you open yourself up to other people, it's like another level. So it's like open all over again. Not a bad thing. Okay. What it means is you need to put some healing and some care around it. So it's going back to, feels like I should begin every interaction with trigger warning. Yes, self-compassion is one way. You have to have self-compassion and a sense of humor through this, and realize that, again, I'm going to say it again, do not project your trigger onto your new love interest or friend interest or whatever it is. Do not project that trigger onto them. It is not theirs to fix. It is yours to look at. It is yours to examine, to figure out. Well, we'll talk about it. And for you to take the time you need, that's a boundary and a time thing, right? Take the time you need to see what's you and what's them, to understand, is this them? Is this me? What? And then look at what happened, what led up to that trigger. Oh, it was a busy day and I didn't have any communication with this person that I talk to every day. That would be triggering to anyone, but super triggering to people who have been through toxic abuse. Right? Because it sets up the whole fear of, where are they? Did they disappear? Are they going to ghost? Did they go away? The whole fear that narcissists, the stuff that they do to us. So, and then also what led up to that? Oh, what led up to that was a week of really great communication. We talk well, we have fun. It's funny, it's light, it's good, whatever. So it was the same feeling that I get when I'm trauma bonded. No wonder I'm triggered, right? It isn't a bad thing. What they did isn't a bad thing. That happens. That's normal. If it happens over and over and over and over in a way that, you watch for patterns, you watch for the normalcy of it, and then what? Then you can talk to them and you have something real to talk to them about. But first you got to process that trigger. If you go straight to your new person and be like, okay, I figured it out. I'm triggered because you didn't text me all day when you were busy. What does that sound like? Sounds a little needy, right? And it's not what you mean. You don't mean to be needy. You're just like, I figured it out. And this can fix it. Can you fix it for me? No. You have to look at it further and go into the self-care part. So each trigger is an opportunity to examine and heal. Yes. Each trigger is a big, giant sign saying you need to heal this. And you can, okay? Whether you can heal 100%, some things will always be there. If you had abandonment issues as a child, you probably always have a little bit of an abandonment issue, but you can learn to cope with it. You can learn what's yours and what's the other person's, and you also are learning, is this person a good fit for my life, whether it be friend or relationship? If someone is consistently not available to you and you need availability, they're not the right person. It's nothing about them that's wrong or right. It's not a red flag. It's not anything. It's just, that's how their life flows. This is how your life flows, and they don't flow together. Now, if it's something you can cope with, like, you know what, I really don't need all that validation. I really don't need constant contact. What I want it because of my trigger or my own codependency or whatever it is, then that's something you can work on for a little while and see if it works. But you see what I'm saying? It's not a red flag. It's a question. You get to question it then and make choices for your life. So when you're triggered, so you're asking yourself, you're seeing that you're triggered. You're asking yourself, what triggered this? What caused this? What happened before I was triggered? You see, because those two things go together. You're not just often, unless it's somebody yelling, like somebody said. Of course. Would you consider this example of a trigger? I'm doing something mundane, like making a sandwich or folding laundry. The narcissist is yelling at me about something. Next time I do the task, I literally relive the argument and feel all of the pain and sadness again. That's like a very direct, hi, Shastina. I'd say that's more of a, yes, it's a trigger. You're still in the traumatic situation though. So it's more like trauma, right? You're re-experiencing the trauma. It's PTSD. That's what that sounds like. A trigger would be like I said, everything's fine, new person, new life, new everything, totally fine, scary but it's all good. You're going along and there's nothing wrong. And just because they don't reply to you quickly, you get anxious because it's reminding you of so many times before when that happened. So it's like a totally different situation. This is kind of what I'm talking about today, these kind of triggers, not the day-to-day triggers that we have out in life. I'm talking directly about when we are trying to engage with new friendships or new relationships, how to not sabotage it and how to not let this, because it does happen and it comes up huge. I don't know anyone that I've talked to who is now in the stage of dating again, especially, or trying to find new friends or finding new social groups who isn't triggered. I see it in group coaching all the time where people are triggered when they enter into trusting one another within the group setting. When the trust is being asked for because it's required in order to connect and communicate, the triggers happen. That's what I'm talking about, and how to not destroy what you're creating because of these triggers. So, or ways to not. I don't know. I have all the answers. I only have thoughts on it. All right. So, is that making sense? All right. So, what triggered me? What led up to that trigger? What happened beforehand that made it feel one way? Then suddenly I'm triggered. What was the thing that triggered? Understand that's yours. Okay. Unless it is directly a red flag. If you don't see any red flags and you're like, oh, that's just kind of normal. Right. I'm being triggered. Examine your trigger either way. So what is your body asking? What is your body saying? What body reactions are you having? Hi, Thriver. What's going on? I can tell you for me, I felt this like great, expansive, joyful, playful, heart yay feeling around this person. As soon as I had the trigger, I felt like I took all of it and swallowed it into my stomach, and it became this burning anxiety of butterflies and horrible anxiety. I couldn't feel the other thing anymore. So it literally flip-flopped. It's like it went down. That's what my body did. It took it into the above the belly button right below the ribs anxiety spot. And that's what it felt like in my body. So I knew body-wise what I could work with. Okay. Like I said, what triggered it? What are what intense thoughts or thought patterns are happening because of that trigger? Paying attention to what you're telling yourself when you're triggered. It went from everything's fine, this is great, how fun, to this person is going to walk away any second. Sorry, I have to laugh because humor is number one. Okay. When I go ahead and trust, it usually backfires. I keep trying to trust instincts, and that's a different topic too. I'm talking about what we can do within ourselves when we are trudging along and things are okay. Is it backfiring because we're reacting to triggers? Maybe it would if I had reacted to that trigger, let me tell you. Would have backfired really fast. And I wouldn't blame for a second because that's crazy. That's like over the top, right? From everything's fine to nothing's right. And you're going to do something to me. And with no provocation and no warning, that's where our brains go though, right? And this is the stuff we're trying to heal so that we can be healthy partners to somebody else as well. Not just, we want the other person to be this unicorn, right? We want them to be safe and good and empathic and all these good things. But, we got to do our part as well. So this is about us today. Okay. So what are the intense thought patterns that are going on in your head? What are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself over and over and over again, I don't deserve this goodness. This isn't good. Why would something good happen to me? Something bad's always going to happen. If something good happens, if it's this good, I have that far to fall. What are you telling yourself over and over and over and over and over again? Because then you can work with it. Can you ask what my trigger was? Somebody new and opening up to vulnerability to the situation and being honest and as authentic as I can be. Shouldn't be scary. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. All right. So when you, let's see here. This person is going to think I'm crazy because I'm broken because of my past that's what you're telling yourself. And that's why it is important to find our own answers in this first before we have a conversation with the other person. This is when the time, the pacing, and the slowing it down, this is what slowing it down means, I think. I think that things can move fast, slow. When you're in a new relationship or a new friendship, you can make a friend and be like super good friends really fast and hanging out all the time. That's a little scary and it's a little love bomby and a little like, but it's not always toxic. Sometimes it's just a good connection. Sometimes it just feels right and you're doing it and there you are. All right. But if you don't slow down when you have things like this, you're pacing it too fast for yourself. Things like this, these triggers that come up, it's really important to self-examine. Healthy relationships take time apart from one another to self-examine what's going on for themselves and then bring it back to the table to share with the other person. They don't just share it the second it happens and start projecting and pushing blame. That's toxic, right? That's the root of how toxic relationships are, right? The other person projecting onto you. You don't want to be doing that to someone else because triggers can be, like you said, the person can think it would look a bit like as if I had gone right there and like, oh my gosh, this is happening, then that would be a bit crazy. It would be a bit over the top and totally not the other person's responsibility to take care of. It's mine. So, we could trigger them as well by throwing up all our fears, but how to stop the flow of honesty. That's what I'm talking about. Take the time. When you recognize it, hopefully you're alone and not right with them. If you are right with them, just take a deep breath, hold it for yourself for a little bit. And it's not necessary to talk about it right now. There's time. This person told me there's no rush. There's time. So there's time. Okay. There's time to get to know this person. There's time to get to know yourself within relationship again. You've just healed from a toxic relationship. You've just found out who you are again. Now you've got to figure out who you are in a relationship again, or who you are in friendships again, and who you are being able to take a step back and be with yourself through these triggers and not throw the trigger as a reliance to the other person. Like don't be codependent and make them fix it. Fix it yourself, figure it out. So, does that make sense? What did Mary say? What do we, I'm telling myself I can't do it. I can't risk being found out. Being found out for what, Jack? I've gone as far as to ask my new love to move on because the triggers freak me out. Okay, so this is what I did. Okay, this is what I'm doing. And I don't know. This is like, it's a fun one to talk about because it's like real life action. It's in the moment. And I can coach it from experience, but I can also tell you I am experiencing it. So I can be honest there and say, I don't have all the answers. I just have what seems to be working and what seems to be healthy. Okay. And also researching on what is actually obviously works for other people. So with the body reactions. So when you take the time for yourself, what do you do with it? Okay, you don't just say, I'm taking time. That would be the withdrawal. That would be the avoidance, right? I'm taking time and then do nothing with it. Just sit there and freak out and wait till the trigger goes away. No, hopefully by now, if you're entering into something with someone or entering into friendships again or relationships again, you have learned some of your own coping skills for triggers. You've learned to calm yourself down minimally, at least to separate the trigger from the triggering response. If you walk down a street corner and every time you pass that certain street sign, you're triggered, it's not the street sign's fault. Okay. If you walk past every time you're around the person of the opposite sex, if you're straight or you're around someone that, you know what I mean? Like you're around someone that could be attractive to you, it's not that person's fault. It's your responsibility to separate the projecting it forward onto the other person into your own future. You don't want to kill something just because of fear, right? Triggers are their fear coming from the past being projected into the future, right? To keep us safe. So, which is kind of ironic in a way, that I'm not a together kind of person. So you don't feel like you're enough. So then working on feeling like enough, just as you are. I'm not a together kind of person either, but I'm enough, right? My perfect counterpart would be someone that's pretty together, and they would enjoy holding onto the kite string and watching me fly. And they'd come along with me once in a while. So I'd bring them up, they'd bring me down. You know what I mean? Not bring me down, but bring me into the more together kind of life. And I'd bring them into a more playful life. That's the ideal for me, right? And everyone's different. So, and maybe two people that aren't, it's like knowing that just because you have that, also, what parts of your life can you get together? If that's the case, if there are things you want to work on there, but it has nothing to do with you being enough or not, or whether or not it's found out. I portray myself as a professional, emotional level person because you have to be that way in teaching. Well, you are that way. So you are that way. That's part of you. We're multifaceted. You have multifacets, and it's not one thing, right? Okay. So maybe it's in seeing the ways in which you are together and the ways in which you let yourself be free, and the ways that, and then other things about it that maybe you want to be more together with, and other things maybe you want to be less restricted by. We're evolving. We're not one thing, and we're not static, right? Okay. My big coping skill right now is to ask myself, what do I need? You are on it, Shoshi. Everything I'm right about to say next, you say. I love it. So either we are communicating really well in this very strange format of one person monologuing and the other people typing, or also you're on it. Okay, you're getting this, at least from what I can tell, right? You don't feel emotionally balanced yet. I'm more out there. Well, maybe that's you, and maybe that's okay. Or maybe there's a way to find more emotional balance for yourself. The feeling of being super duper flawed keeps us in the crappy relationship, the belief. Yes, we have to believe in ourselves. All right. So when you're triggered, what do you do with that time that you take for yourself? So if we're not going to project it onto the other person, and we're not going to ask them to fix it, and we're not going to tell them right away, I'm triggered, okay? Because that's just not fair. Unless it's a situation where you have to in order to take the time. If you have to tell them in order to take the time, then tell them. But right away, there's not, especially if we're talking about new things that you're trying to work on, not sabotaging, right? It's not theirs to to deal with at that moment. It's yours. So you ask yourself, where is it in my body? What can you do to, like I said, went into my stomach. It didn't feel good in my stomach, and it was a lot of anxiety. So I took a walk. So I did some breathing exercises. I did some meditations to move my energy through my whole body instead of letting it sit in one place. And that helped tremendously get the feeling out of my body. Now, the reason it helped tremendously is I am practiced at that. So this is why I am constantly saying, do your mindfulness practices, do them. It may not help in the moment, but it pays off later on because you train yourself how to calm down. And it didn't take it away. The thoughts were still there. The trigger, I could bring it up right now if I wanted to. In fact, I'm starting to just talking about it a little bit, but moving that energy through you. I think I went to dance and I walked and for the body. Those are the things I did for the body. I made sure I ate. I tried to get some sleep, things like that take care of the body so that it is not just sitting there in the state of anxiety with that feeling, because that feeling in your body signals your brain, which signals the thoughts, which then triggers the emotions. And then you've got this triad, this loop, this triangle really of your thoughts, your emotions, and your body. And they're all pulling towards the anxiety or the trigger. And they're all like going like an arrow toward it. So I calmed the body down once I figured out where it was sitting in my body. And then another thing you can do is listen to the thoughts and the thought patterns. You can change and interrupt your thought patterns. You can tell yourself, no, I am not having this thought right now. I'm choosing a thought, and change it to something else. You can give yourself a little thing to say that makes you stop and think. That stopping and thinking is the pattern interrupt part. And then state something positive. I'm working on this trigger. I want to understand what it is about this anxiety so that I can heal it. Instead of, I don't want to feel this anxiety. It's not fair. This should be good. It should be easy, like whatever I was telling myself about, or telling myself, whatever thoughts are going on for you. Try to state it in a way that is positive toward the healing of the thing versus fighting it. Picture yourself at the beach, feeling the sand and smelling the ocean and seeing the waves. There's another calming thing. Exactly. Bring yourself into the moment with some mindfulness, with some meditation, with some visualizations. Bring yourself back to the present time. Again, if you're projecting into the future, the trigger from the past, the fear of the past, you're not living in the now. Unless the now is happening. Unless someone is yelling at you, that's different. That's not what we're talking about here. Right now, we're talking about the kind of triggers that are that are mysterious things that happen when you re-engage with other people and learn to and are trying to open yourself up to trust and vulnerability again, whether it be friendships or relationships. Okay, so what did you say back here that I said I was going to say? Well, let me just keep going. So asking yourself what you need, excuse me, the emotional needs are often, I have to cough, excuse me. There we go. The emotional needs that are the source of this trigger, right? They are the root of it. The trigger, so what do you, I'm curious about, Shoshi, what you're going to say next with this stuff. So the source of this trigger usually is an emotional thing, right? So having some introspection on what that is. Can you sense when you've had this happen before in your life? When's the first time you felt this? I realized that mine actually wasn't about the narcissist. Had nothing to do with my ex. Nothing. Well, only in that he completed the pattern of the things that would happen. It had to do with childhood stuff. My trigger went far, 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 far back. And I had to sit with that little girl and talk to her about safety and emotional safety, and that she's protected and she's okay, and she grows up to be fine, and she's pretty funny, and she, I had to like talk her up a little bit and talk to myself as a little girl. You know what I mean? I had to sit and consider that this was going really far back. So no wonder I'm projecting it so far into the future. And this really has nothing to do with that other person. This has to do with communication. There's all kinds of things I could see. So many things lit up, so many dots connected. So that's what you're looking for, I think, is what were the emotional unmet needs and how can I give that to myself? So back to the self-care, back to the taking care of it yourself versus putting it onto this new relationship so that we're not demanding it from someone else, right? Which isn't fair. Jack says, the woman I'm getting to know actually takes an interest in me genuinely, and that feels very strange. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Yes. It goes back to childhood. So, I sat and talked to myself. So, try it. Try talking to the child when you can see the direct link. Try talking to that issue. What do you feel? What's going on? What are you afraid of? What happened? What is it that you feel? And sometimes you'll notice it's not the thing you think it is. And then what do you need? What do you need, kiddo? What can I give you? Do you need a hug? Do you want to play? What do you want? And just imagine yourself doing those things and giving to yourself, and take the time that it takes, however long that takes. This is the time, right? This is giving back to yourself time. And work on the inner child stuff. There's all kinds of ways too, but that's one way. All right. Talk to the inner child, give the child what it needs on a child level, not justifying away the problems, simply giving the emotions that are needed to yourself, telling yourself everything is it's okay in the end, and you are strong and you can take care of yourself, and you're there with yourself, right? It's being present to yourself. We leave a little piece of us back in the past. It's kind of like bringing them forward so they can see it's all okay. All right. And sometimes the different parts need different things. I now examine which part is hurting. Right. My therapist has helped me discover that I have several parts: childhood, self, teenage. Exactly. The stages that we're at when these traumas lock in, you kind of get stuck in this place inside of ourselves that we lock it there, right? But the thing is, we're complex, and we're always going back to that pain. So talk to that pain and let it go. Not let it go, but heal it by nurturing it and taking care of it. And my actualized adult is the new parent. Yes, that's it. All right. This is what a lot of it comes down to. If it's not coming down to a childhood thing, maybe you don't need reparenting. Maybe it's talking to the wounded survivor in you and telling her or him that I'm here and I'm watching and I'm taking care of things, and you're going to be okay. We're not going to let that happen again. And here's the thing. Any relationship you enter into with the strength and the awareness and the understanding and the knowledge that you have from all that you've done with your healing, you can walk away from. You do not need to stay in anything toxic. So if we're fearing the risk of someone being toxic, know you can walk away. If somebody leaves you, know you're okay alone. You were okay alone before you met them, and you're going to be okay alone if they leave. The fear of abandonment is like, it's huge, but the truth is we're okay. And so it depends on what's being triggered, right? So also, again, I'm going to say, find some sense of humor in it. Try to lighten up a little and not think that this trigger is the end all of everything. All right. That you can't move forward or move past it. Just finding a little humor in the situation can sometimes, I'm laughing at it right now, but yes. We have to go back, reach back, and reparent ourselves. That's right. So can you see how this really has nothing to do with the new relationship or even looking for red flags? This is assuming that we have found someone that we are willing to trust that isn't showing red flags, or that it's a friendship that it feels safe enough to, of course, we're still watching, but this all has to do with you taking care of your own trigger so that you aren't projecting it into the new relationship. Whoa, what is that? Okay. Okay, so another thing is restate that inner dialogue. Really listen to what you're saying to yourself. Restate that inner dialogue. Ask yourself what you really need. Why am I telling myself this over and over again? What is it I really need? So when you clarify what you really need, then you have something to talk about with your new prospective partner, your new prospective love interest, your new dating person, your friend, whatever it is, whoever that person is. You don't have anything really to talk about. I'm triggered. That doesn't mean anything to the other person. What are they supposed to do with that? I need clear communication, and I need to know that when we're not together, that everything's okay. The way it would help me is blah, blah, blah. Can you do that? Much better conversation, I think, than I'm freaking out and I can't deal with this. And, like the stuff that happens when you're triggered, or just coming from that place of trigger versus coming from the place of awareness of what you need is a totally different conversation to have with a new person right? Okay. You just realize why the struggle in teaching classes of kids, even though I'm really good at it, I give more to them than to me instead of me. Okay. All right. So asking yourself what you need, what it's really all about, what's needed, how that relates to the current situation that you're in, if it even does. Again, come back to your body again, meditate. You guys, the mindfulness is important for all of healing. Mindfulness meditations are very useful and helpful. Walking, singing, journaling, dancing, anything to move it in your body, move it out of your emotions onto paper, art, something. Do something to create something with these triggers so that you're actually working through them instead of just letting them compound and come up over and over again. One important thing is to not run away from once you recognize that, like, I'm triggered from abandonment, whatever. Okay. So let's say it's that I have an abandonment trigger and it just got triggered. And it's huge. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. Once you recognize what it is that you're working on and what you're feeling and where it came from, just sit with it. You don't need to do anything about it sometimes except feel it. Sometimes it's just like when we're healing from trauma bonds or anything big like that. Feeling what you need to feel and not pushing it away and not avoiding the feeling can sometimes make that feeling have a good cry and it feels better. And hey, Oswald, what are you doing? You're climbing on the window. What are you doing? Come here. So yeah, feeling it is important. We're almost done here. If you get to that point where you feel like you've worked through this, that's when it would be safe to bring it back to the relationships that's starting or to the friendship or whatever it is. That's what I think. That's the point at which you find out if this person is there for you. That's when you find out if this is something that can be something, because you give information to them, they give you feedback, and that's it. You don't have to give them the whole information of everything you just went through. You can just say, what I discovered was, I just had something come up and I'm telling you what, whoever you're with, they're having triggers too. It's just people process it different, and people who haven't had to work with triggers don't understand it or don't need to. They just kind of move through it. So hopefully you can then have a conversation that is more logical and more even emotionally, and showing where you take responsibility for the trigger versus projecting it onto them to fix it, and therefore not sabotaging something new. Rounded it all up. Okay, guys, anything else before we go? Yeah, and I realized I didn't talk a lot about narcissists today because I didn't want to. No, because this is not about them. This is about us and healing today and moving forward and not going backwards into the land of the narcissist. So, excuse me, thank you, Shoshi. And I appreciated your input because it was spot on and right ahead of me, and I loved it. Okay. I prefer to, I like to have a couple days of talk about narcissists, of course, because we need to, and then a couple days where we don't, because really what matters is moving forward, not going backwards toward these narcissistic, keeping them in our peripheral awareness all the time, right? Okay. All right. I'm done here for today. If you need any help with coaching or group coaching, as I said, check out the information in the main description of every video. There are links to anything you need for that. Yeah, if you want texting notification, text me at 33222. Put the word Lise Live, LISE, hit send, and that will get you a text about 10 minutes prior to my being live every time. Come on here about, hi, Robin. Come in here about 3 to 4 times a week. Any topics you want to talk about, leave them in any comment to any video so that I see them. This was a suggested topic from Wednesday, and I don't remember who asked for it or if they are here. So hopefully they get a chance to see this when they see the title pop up. So, and what are we talking about? Oh, I'm glad you feel better today, Robin. Good. Okay. Yeah, that's it. If you haven't hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.